Okay, so we're going to be tying the 007 nymph, or a variant of it anyway. This is a beadhead version of it. Obviously we've got a 2 times long size 14 black nickel finish hook from Gamakatsu, and this fly is normally tied with red floss like you'd see on the royal wulffs and the like, but the variant I'm doing is using red saddle hackle fibres as the tail. So obviously just feathers like that, and just stripping away these longer fibres towards the bottom. And I actually like to make quite an obvious tail, about the length of from the back of the bead to the bend in the hook. So sitting about there. I actually like to make quite a thick, obvious tail, not just kind of 1 or 2 fibres. I like to kind of bulk it up a bit, because obviously when it gets wet it tends to strip down a bit. So I like to make it nice and obvious, because this definitely is an attractor fly, and this is the attractor of the fly, so we wanted to make it nice and bold. And this is a pretty fantastic trout fly, I think. It's first few that I tied, and on the very first few trout trips I did, didn't actually sink, because I obviously hadn't tied enough weight into them. But funnily enough, I still had fish smacking them off the top like they were emergers, which was pretty incredible. So it's kind of given me a lot of confidence, obviously. You know what they say about confidence flies, you stick with them. So anyway, now we've got to add some extra lead in here. We've got it's a tungsten bead up the front, only a small one, but we still want to get it just a little bit heavier and towards the front, so we'll get the eye of or the head of the fly, the eye of the hook heading down and pointing down the entire time, so they'll basically make it bump on the bottom, as opposed to not bumping on the bottom and getting the hook stuck in everywhere. And this is obviously it's a 3 times heavy gauge hook as well. You can use them for dry flies as well, but obviously you need something nice and buoyant, like deer hair or something to float it. But yeah, nice hooks from Gamakatsu. The rib we're going to use is black wire. We are trying to make a very stark contrasting fly here, so you've got red at one end, gold at the other, and jet black in the middle. So it looks really nice when it's all finished. So just bind that in. Make sure it's all nice and secure. The dubbing we're using is rabbit's fur, or hare's ear more particularly. And if I can find my dubbing wax, okay. Apply a liberal amount of dubbing wax. This is the Loon latex wax dubbing wax. It's meant to have stuff that apparently contains odor masking pheromones, but well, I don't know. I'm not a fish, so I don't know if it works or not. So start dubbing or spinning your dubbing onto your line. Fairly long shank we've got to cover, so you can put a bit on. So this is a nice jet black rabbit's fur, obviously. Start wrapping. You don't want it to be too thick, you want to taper it towards the front, obviously. So you start building it up as you get towards your wire. You don't want it to be flat and boring, they look really bad. That's how my first nymphs that I used to tie used to look like. Consequently, I didn't used to catch many fish on them, or maybe it's because I didn't have confidence when my mates were tying better flies than me and they were catching fish. And I kind of worked it out, I guess you could say. There's nothing better than finally cracking it and working out what you're doing wrong. And just little things, it's all about confidence with your flies, as I said. Get some more dubbing out. Okay. Let's thicken this last bit up. Okay, now the rib. over, obviously, because it's you still want to make this nice and even because it will kind of rib the body nicely. Obviously, it's definitely not an attractor rib, so it doesn't have gold or copper colour. But it definitely does make a difference in how the float looks when it's wet. Just want to secure that wire off. I like to put a little thumbnail dent in it just to make sure it kind of bites back onto something. Right, now the shellback we're going to be using, the wing case, is stuff from Taiwan called Stretchback in 3mm. Now I'd like to have it in black, but I don't at the moment, so I'm using dark brown and then colouring it with a Nico, a black Nico obviously. So just bear with me. This stuff's really good if you haven't used it for any of your nymphs or check nymphs or anything like that yet. You should get into it because it's really good gear. Nice and stretchy, will stretch out and thinning out as you're kind of pulling on it. It'll actually go a lot thinner than what it starts out to be. So you can make it kind of fit a whole variety of different types of flies. Okay, back in with some more dubbing for the thorax. Great thing about this hair's ear, it will go on without using dubbing wax. And this is the bit that we actually want to, the thorax I like to fluff out a bit. So sometimes the wax tends to hang on to it a bit. Just a little bit more. Just finish off that front up to the bead. Okay, now with your shellback, stretch it nice and tight. It'll actually shrink down, so it won't be quite as wide as 3mm. As you can see there, it actually kind of shrinks down as you pull it taut. Make sure it's straight. Give it a good couple of winds down. Now when you cut the stuff off, you pull up on it. As you do, it will pull the cut right down close to your thread binds. And that's pretty much your fly. I'll just throw a couple of half hitches over this. You finish it however you want. If you want to use some sort of knotting tool, whip finisher or what's so. It's up to you. I just use these days. As long as you're using some sort of head cement or glue or something, it's not going to come apart real easy. At the end of the day, if it catches a fish, it's done its job. Okay, as I said, this wing case, you could leave it dark brown if you only had dark brown and you couldn't be bothered changing it, but just to make it a bit more uniform colour. And also the Nico tends to make it a bit shiny, which is pretty cool, I think. Kind of gives it that buggy kind of shell look. We're done. A couple of dobs of head cement. I use the head set from Taiwan. It smells like nail polish, but I think it's a little bit tougher than that. So you want to make sure you get all your thread, your last bindings covered, and definitely where your hitches are so they don't come unstuck. And you can even dab a bit of this over your rubber shell as well, your shell back, and it'll just seal that colour in, and definitely, even though it's waterproof, it's definitely a permanent marker. Alright, last but not least, as I said, I like to pull out some of the thorax. This is a personal preference. Some people like, some people don't. It's up to you. This is meant to kind of, make it look like it's got legs, basically. And what I normally do is pull some fibre out like that, and then just trim it even with the bottom of the shank. Or the bottom of where the hook point is, basically. I just trim it right underneath that. Just get that last bit.